shot him 6 times. I shot him in the heart. This man, he's not human.
Universal Pictures presents Halloween 2. More of the night he came home. There is no place to hide. He will always find you. Halloween 2. More of the night he came home.
Halloween. Alright. Fuck, thought I heard something. Happy Halloween, everyone, and welcome to the final Horror Month video here on GamerThumbTV. Today, we're going to celebrate the magic of Halloween. And nobody represents Halloween better than Michael Myers, the unstoppable mental patient obsessed with killing his sister. Last year, I reviewed the original movie, which you can check out later by clicking the link above. And this is the second year this channel has been operating, so let's make this a yearly Halloween special. Welcome to the second annual Halloween review, where we're going to dive into Halloween 2. I've always considered the Halloween series to be the king of slasher movies. It popularized all the stereotypes that we've seen time and time again, like people wandering off on their own, teenagers being promiscuous, while the main character is innocent and follows the rules. And another common trait that these slasher movies all have in common are that the sequels generally get worse as the franchise goes on. Even Halloween suffered from this.
Trick or treat, motherfucker!
I hate Halloween Resurrection so much. But Halloween 2 is one of those rare sequels that, while they're not as good as the original, it's pretty damn close. And it also takes place immediately after the first one during the same night. I love this feature so much because you can watch 1 and 2 back to back, and it feels like you've just watched one long movie. And if you don't remember the details of how the first movie ended, no worries. Halloween 2 starts by showing you the ending of the first one, then picking up right away. Movie sequels don't typically take place immediately picking up after the original one ends, and Halloween 2 almost didn't. John Carpenter's original idea was to have it take place years later as Michael tracks down Laurie to a high-rise apartment. A very different idea. But after a couple of script meetings, it was fleshed out into the sequel we all know today. He didn't direct it this time though, handing the keys over to director Rick Rosenthal, and took a backseat as producer alongside Deborah Hill. Anyways, getting back to Haddonfield, Illinois on Halloween night. Michael Myers had just been shot 6 times and fell off a second-story balcony and somehow got up and walked away, leaving a Looney Tunes-style impression in the ground, so you know exactly where he landed. Donald Pleasance as Michael's psychiatrist Dr. Loomis is a joy to watch on screen, just like in the first movie. Such an accomplished actor in this slasher movie, and he gives it his all in a wonderfully exaggerated performance.
What's going on out here?
Call the police. Tell the sheriff I shot him.
Who?
Tell him he's still on the loose.
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick or treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
And then the intro credits. What a great opening, instantly setting you in the mood for this wonderful Halloween adventure. And instead of zooming into the pumpkin like in the first movie, now the pumpkin slowly splits open, revealing a skull inside. I don't know why, but this intro always scared the hell out of me as a kid. And during most of the movie, Dr. Loomis spends his time running around panicking about Michael still being alive and trying to get the police to believe that he shot him 6 times.
I shot him in the heart.
You can't have gotten very far. Come on.
I shot him 6 times. This guy, this man, he's not human.
Couldn't have shot him 6 times.
You think I'm lying, Sheriff?
I think you missed him. No man could take 6 slugs.
I tell you, this isn't a man.
I love that cop's reaction, by the way. Just listen to how much he clearly doesn't give a shit about anything that's going on.
Shot him 6 times. This guy.
By this time, the town is in complete chaos since news is spread of an escaped mental patient serial killer on the loose. So the cops are scrambling around trying to find him with Dr. Loomis tagging along, and he's absolutely out of his mind. In an awfully disturbing yet hilarious scene, he goes crazy when he believes he sees Michael.
Look out, slow down.
What?
Over there, look. Come on, man. Stop.
So he gets ready to shoot him, and then... Oh! That was a little bit drastic. Don't police usually stop, point their guns, and tell the suspect to put their hands up first? This cop didn't give a damn, rocketing towards Michael so fast that the car exploded on impact. Oh wait.
He came out of nowhere.
He just didn't see him. But Michael's burned up body can't be identified, and they can't figure out if it really is Michael or not.
He's young, maybe 17, maybe 18.
Michael Myers is 21.
Mr. Hunt?
Yeah, what is it, Craig?
Yeah, I'm worried about Bennett Tramer. He isn't home yet. Yeah, and he left the party at 10.
It's only a little after 11, boys.
He was real drunk.
How old is he?
17. He had this stupid mask on.
Whoops. This dude most definitely picked the wrong costume for the evening. And I feel so bad for Loomis throughout the movie. He constantly gets blamed for Michael getting out. And he's repeatedly said, even throughout the first movie, that he was fighting to keep him locked away forever.
You let him out.
I didn't.
His own goddamn doctor.
I didn't let him out.
During all this chaos, Michael is creeping around the neighborhood with ninja-like stealth. I've always loved the first-person camera view, seeing things from the killer's point of view, while hearing him breathe through his mask. It's so unsettling, and for a slasher movie from 1981, the camera work is fantastic. And Michael easily sneaks into a house where some old lady is making a sandwich for her husband, who, by the way, fell asleep watching Night of the Living Dead. How dare he? That is a fantastic movie that no one should ever sleep through. And Michael steals the kitchen knife, his signature weapon, and then stands there for a second. That is genuinely terrifying. Can you imagine turning around in the comfort of your own home and seeing this monster standing there motionless with that creepy ass mask? After taking the knife, he leaves, leaving a small bloody pile on the counter.
He'll hear you.
Here he comes now. I'm getting out of it.
Where did that fresh blood come from? I assume it's from his clothes or something, maybe, but it looks like he just poured a little bit of blood from one of those fake blood containers you get at Halloween stores. I don't really understand the physics of that blood. I don't know, who cares? Then a neighbor notices the old lady screamed.
Mrs. Elrod? Mr. Elrod? There was someone screaming next door. Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Elrod. He probably got angry and decided to start beating her.
Okay, that's a bit dramatic to assume. You hear a scream on Halloween night, and your first thought was domestic abuse? Please simmer down with your accusations. And then Michael wanders into her house too. Let me stop right here for a second and analyze this situation here. TVs and radios all over town are playing the news, warning people that there's an escaped psychopath murdering people, and nobody closes or locks their doors. He just calmly walked into 2 different houses like he owns the place.
Not been identified. The name of the psychiatrist has not been released. Haddonfield police have put out an all-points bulletin with the description.
Who is it?
And you want to see what happens to people that don't lock their doors when serial killers are running amok? You die. And let's take a look back at this scene. There's two things I want to point out that make this movie a bit different from the first one. Notice the blood when she gets stabbed. The first movie was known to be really tame when it came to blood and gore. It accomplished being a terrifying experience without resorting to gruesome violence. Although Halloween 2, it's pretty tame for today's standards in terms of violence, but there's noticeably more blood and gore in this movie than in the first one, which actually did cause some behind-the-scenes drama. See, Halloween was still John Carpenter's baby, so after the movie was practically finished, Carpenter went back in, made some changes, and added more blood and gore to compete with all the new slasher movies of the time, which were full of blood and gore, which pissed off the director, who saw this as someone stepping in and ruining his movie. And the second thing I wanted to point out, Michael's mask. Notice it looks slightly different from the first one, although it's supposed to be the same night. It's a little dirtier, a little grimier. Well, the real story behind that is that producer Deborah Hill was a heavy smoker, and she kept the original mask between making 1 and 2. So time plus cigarette smoke yellowed the mask and made it look the way it does. And Michael spends the first half of the movie trying to track down Laurie, knowing she survived their encounter, which includes some moments that legitimately made me jump.
Memorial Clinic.
If you're wondering where Laurie is, she was taken to the hospital, which I find hilarious because she was never really successfully stabbed. She got her shoulder cut a bit and fell sometimes, but her injuries were pretty minor, or at least it seemed, especially compared to her friend Annie, who got choked out and died. And by the way, this must have been an easy paycheck right here. Annie coming back into a role to play a dead body for 2 seconds. And of course, Dr. Loomis gets blamed for this too.
Damn you.
Sorry.
What have you done?
I haven't done anything.
You let him out!
I didn't let him out. I gave orders for him to be restrained.
Over at the hospital, the doctor tells Laurie that she lost a lot of blood, and he has to put her out. Really? I mean, I'm no medical expert by any means, but couldn't they just stitch up her shoulder and send her home? I mean, she suffered a broken bone in her foot too, but it all seems like so much. Whatever, slasher movie. The second half of Halloween 2 takes place in the hospital, which is a nice change from the first one. Instead of the open environment of the entire neighborhood going from house to house, we're now in an enclosed environment where you're supposed to be protected and cared for. Horror is at its best when normally safe situations are turned upside down. Michael eventually discovers where Laurie was taken, and he calmly walks towards the hospital, and eventually sneaks in. And they don't show him on camera often, which creates much more effective suspense. When Michael is in the scene, we usually see his point of view as he quietly stalks his prey, hiding in the shadows or appearing briefly on security cameras. Here in Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, we meet an interesting cast of characters, the obvious kill counts for Michael Myers. Let's start with Jimmy. Oh, do I have a lot to say about Jimmy. He knows Laurie from school and happens to work for the hospital. He comes off like such a creeper. He becomes almost obsessed with protecting her. He is always looking at her awkwardly. And even his coworkers try to keep him away from her repeatedly.
Come on, Jimmy. Out. Time's up, Jimmy. Let's go.
Okay.
We've also got the obligatory security guard, and I feel so bad for this security guard. He's just this husky guy, probably just trying to make ends meet by working a low-paying overnight shift at the local hospital, and falls victim to several horror movie tropes. Mistake number 1, he goes out to investigate all by himself. You never go out on your own. Then he falls victim to what I like to call the false scare. Oh, thank God it wasn't a serial killer, it was just a cat. Mistake number 2, he starts exploring areas that he shouldn't be, like this dark, ominous corridor. Oh, thank God it wasn't a serial killer, just a couple of boxes. And oh no! Michael, like any professional movie monster, cuts off the phone so nobody can call out for help, setting the stage for a rampage. And then we've got Bud. Bud is the asshole of the group. That one guy that says dirty things and doesn't take any situation seriously, like a killer being on the loose in your immediate area, and nobody really seems to like him.
Every other word you say is either hell or shit or damn.
Sorry. I guess I just fuck up all the time. Amazing Grace, come sit on my face. Don't make me cry. I need your pie. Look, why don't you just shut up, all right?
But there's always that one character that's attracted to that personality, and that's the nurse. Nurse Karen, who's always late for work. Bud is such a romantic individual, too. Instead of buying Nurse Karen roses and taking her out for a nice dinner, he just decides to prank her instead, on a night where there's an escaped mental patient in your immediate vicinity.
Oh, you idiot!
And to reward his despicable behavior, she sneaks away with him for sexual adventures. Huge horror movie mistake. If you get naughty in a horror movie, you've practically just signed your own death certificate.
Now, Bud, don't be that way.
And do hospitals really have tubs that get that hot? I don't know. It seems kind of dangerous. While chaos ensues in the hospital, chaos also breaks out outside. A bunch of teens are going crazy, throwing rocks at the old Myers house, and Dr. Loomis goes inside with a cop to see if Michael's hiding in there, then begins explaining Michael's entire backstory.
Yet one night in 1963, Michael Myers did murder his sister and that...
We know the story. I guess it's for the people that didn't see the first one. Then he travels to Laurie's school looking for Michael, and Marion Chambers tracks him down. If you don't remember Marion, she's the mental hospital nurse from the first movie, whose car gets jacked by Michael. The mental hospital sent her to bring back Dr. Loomis with a police escort, because they're worried the health department might look bad if Dr. Loomis stays involved. And on the way back, Marion reveals the big secret behind Michael and Laurie's relationship.
That girl, that Strode girl, that's Michael Myers' sister. She was born 2 years before he was committed. 2 years after, his parents died and she was adopted by the Strodes.
Now that Dr. Loomis understands what's going on, he becomes a badass and refuses to leave.
Turn this car around now.
I can't do that. I've got orders.
Those orders just changed.
Dr. Loomis!
Doctor, you're getting yourself into a lot of trouble.
What does you fellas usually do? Fire a warning shot, right?
Back in the hospital, Laurie's completely zoned out, and here comes Jimmy again. What is wrong with this guy? He is the definition of a rapist in the making. And I don't know what the hell they gave Laurie, but she's completely out of it, staring into blank space. I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy went in there and snuck roofies in her somehow. With all this insanity going on, Nurse Janet, another employee, goes off on her own, again, a mistake, to get help from the main doctor. And this death is especially hard to watch. It's not gory, and mind you, I'm not afraid of needles at all, but watching that needle go into the side of her head makes me cringe every single time I watch this movie. Nurse Jill is also wandering around by herself, and Jimmy stops to talk to her.
Sorry.
Who the hell gets someone's attention like that? Of course it had to be Jimmy, the creeper. He tells Nurse Jill that he's gonna go off to get help, and sets off to be the hero in a majestic run. A hero indeed. By the way, when they were talking previously, don't they see the obvious shadow of a person right there? He's right there. These people have no awareness of their surroundings. Eventually, Michael finds Laurie and fulfills his mission. never mind. Actually, she realized something was wrong and she started limping away. Although 2 seconds ago she was mysteriously comatose. And poor Nurse Jill. God, that looks so ridiculously painful. And the required serial killer and victim chase begins, with Laurie speeding away and Michael taking his sweet-ass time. But horror movie monsters always catch up. He is so ridiculously slow. Had several chances to kill her. After running all over the hospital, Laurie escapes, and all the cars have slashed tires, so she hides inside of one. I would be running my ass away from the hospital as far as I possibly could go. To the next town over, to another state. I don't care. I would just keep running. Hiding within the immediate area that the killer is located is a terrible idea, but it wouldn't be a slasher flick if victims were intelligent. Eventually, Stalker Jimmy wakes up and finds Laurie, fainting and hitting the car horn like an idiot. I really don't know if he's dead or not at this point. They really don't address him again after that. I have no idea. Interestingly enough though, if you watch the Halloween 2 edited for television cut, the movie makes several changes. One of them includes Jimmy being found alive at the end. Not in the official theatrical cut. That's not established once. Dr. Loomis gets to the hospital to help, and Laurie can't yell for help for some reason. Until, of course, they go inside completely out of earshot. And because of dumbass Jimmy, Michael finds her again, and the chase begins anew, with Loomis and the gang joining the fun. And watch this. This is awesome. Michael is such a badass, he walks through the hospital door, effortlessly. He doesn't even need to kick the glass in first like Jason does. He just walks through, then gets shot repeatedly by Loomis again. Dr. Loomis fired off 5 shots. It appears like one might have missed, so let's say he got 4 shots in. Adding in the 6 shots from the first movie, Michael was walking around with 10 fairly close-range bullet wounds. Damn. And Marion runs away to call for help, escaping to safety, until Michael finds her years later in Halloween H2O. There is no escape from Michael Myers.
Get away from him! But he stopped breathing! No!
And instead of trying to run around Michael and leaving through the broken hospital doors, Dr. Loomis and Laurie run away into a room with no other exit. Another intelligent horror movie choice. And he gives Laurie a gun. And like the expert marksman that he is, Dr. Loomis tries shooting Michael, not realizing that his gun is completely empty. Then Laurie shoots him twice, right in the face, blinding him. And he's still going. So as a last resort, they open all the oxygen valves in the room, and Dr. Loomis, suffering from a stab wound, blows himself up along with Michael in a fiery blaze of destruction, killing both of them instantly. Oh wait, he somehow survives, showing up in later sequels with some minor facial scars. And Michael, like the Terminator, survived the blast, completely engulfed in flames and suffering from several gunshots, 2 being directly in the face, and still going after Laurie, until he collapses and finally dies, burning to a crisp. Oh wait, he also appeared in later sequels, also revealed to be suffering minor burns and not much more. Laurie Strode survived the nightmare, and goes on to live another day, free from her brother chasing her, and emotionally scarred for the rest of her life. And that about sums up Halloween 2, a movie best watch if you watch the original back to back. But if you enjoyed... the closet. No!
Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Make him the cutest that I've ever seen.